Do you think that women's sexual liberation was good for women? So,
Come on, girls.
so go ahead.
When you say sexual liberation, can you expand on that?
Being a hoe.
Wow.
So being partially being a hoe, but particularly the development of birth control in the 1960s. That's what changed the game, right? Because before, when girls slept around, there was always the consequence of possibly getting pregnant.
Yeah.
But once you added birth control into it, it takes away the consequence because you can get an IUD and you have a 99 point whatever % chance of not getting pregnant.
What was the question again?
Is women's sexual liberation
It's a hard question.
good for women?
I'm gonna say no,
Okay.
just because of what you've. I don't like the idea of birth control. I don't like the fact that it was created just for women. So yeah, I'm anti that. So
Okay. What about you?
I think, oh God. It didn't. I'd say it didn't, just because of the fact that I feel like women. It's so hard. I'm trying to think of a best way to say it. Basically, no, I don't agree that it has helped women to be liberating. But then again, when it comes to birth control, I feel like I don't necessarily feel like birth control helped women be more liberating necessarily. I don't think they do it for men. They do it for themselves, but not to have sex whenever or wherever they wanted.
Who? Say that
women.
So women aren't on birth control to have sex whenever they want?
Some women choose not to have children, regardless. Not everyone wants to have children. So when it...
But like the only purpose of birth control is to have sex without having kids.
No, but I mean...
I know some people do it for acne too. I'll put that in there.
And for menstrual reasons as well.
Yes.
But that's why I say it's not solely
Right.
just to not have babies.
But wouldn't you say the majority it's for...
It is. Majority
yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Majority it is, yeah.
I need to preface this by saying that I can't have children.
Okay.
So I know nothing about birth control. I've never had a period in my life.
Speaking to the mic.
I've never... Sorry.
You're right.
I'll tell you what, let me bring it around here.
Perfect.
I've never had a period in my life. I've obviously never taken birth control, don't need to. But my general views on sexual liberation are that, yes, it's helped. Because, I mean, realistically, if we're all under the illusion, right, that women were having great orgasms and, you know, and really enjoying sex with their forced marriage husbands, like, I just don't think that's a reality. I'm almost certain that I know people from 2 generations before me, you know, my grandma and whatever, that didn't even enjoy sex. And I bet your bottom dollar the reason they didn't enjoy sex is not because sex is not enjoyable for them if it's done right. It's because... they never met a man. She was with one man her whole life. Like, I don't know, but how can you know that's what you want, right? On the other hand, I don't think that we don't do as well in relationships.
Yes.
Right? Sorry, out of relationships. So, for example, I mean, I struggle to orgasm more with casual partners. It takes me at least a few times to get into it and get comfortable with them and whatever. I think that's our what do you call it? It's like our, like a fear. You know what I mean? It's like you need to get to know someone, because especially sex is a very intimate act, and it can make you, as a woman, I think, I hope you'd all agree, feel it.
So if you're saying that women tend to have better sex in relationships, wouldn't it make more sense that back then people used to get married and have a relationship, and then they'd be in one long-term relationship?
No, because I think that number one, the sex education that you have before that relationship is never, it's never good enough to tell people exactly what they need to be doing. Number two, I think that to be quite honest with you, like in our current, you know, climate, we have multiple relationships through our lives which teach us things. I don't think we're monogamous creatures.
Well, they also traumatize you.
Oh yeah, of course they do. But
Yeah.
but life is traumatizing in so many ways.
But you don't think it's like better to have less relationships than more?
I mean, to a certain degree.
Because every time you have if you have a relationship, you have a heartbreak, right?
To a certain degree, I'm not denying
yeah.
that. But at the same time, I just don't think you can learn everything you need to learn from one relationship your whole life. It's just not feasible.
What are the things that you think they're not learning?
Well, for example,
Because arguably, you mentioned your grandparents, right? So you said that arguably she wasn't having good sex, but then what's her metric for good and bad sex?
well, I mean, look, I didn't sit there and have like.
No,
really
I'm just
in-depth-
curious. But
No,
what's
I know, I get
what
it.
would the metric be?
Because how would she know if she's only had sex with one person?
But that's exactly my point.
Yeah, but I'm saying so. I'll give you a stat, right? If a woman's a virgin when she gets married, and she has an 80% chance of being in a happy marriage after 10 years. 80% chance.
Okay.
On the other hand, if a girl's had sex with more than 5 partners, it drops to 25%. So, yeah, and I think in the modern day and age, most guys will pray for 5 partners. So
I mean, look, this is the only problem I have with statistics. As much as I like to follow them to a certain degree, obviously we have to, right? But I just think, when it comes to reportedly happy marriages, I mean, really, what is a fulfilling relationship?
a fulfilling relationship. Well, one that I think one metric you can use is how long it lasts.
One that lasts, but I mean, realistically, if we're going by the premise that women, the statistic you just said, which means that women would be faithful to their husband their whole lives, right? Do you really think their husbands are being faithful to them? So is their marriage actually happy, and are they really happy? Would they really be happy if they knew the realities of their marriage, which is probably that their husband was playing around at some point?
So two things. One, there's a really big misconception that a lot of men are sleeping with everybody. And the reason women think that men cheat all the time is because we're all sleeping with the same ones. Because if you survey 100% of women on what they want in a guy, they list 20% of men, sometimes 15, sometimes 5% of men. When it comes to dating apps, women only swipe right between 5 to 20% of the time. So it's a very small percentage of men that even have the option to cheat. So
yeah, okay. But the thing is, I feel like you're talking about stuff that's modern, right? Because realistically, if we're talking about marriages in the way that they used to be, that would mean going back in time when women were oppressed by marriage, the institution of marriage, which means that realistically, the husbands having the male privilege they had would have much more likely been able to go out and play away. I had an uncle a great uncle, in the Navy, and he's had a wife back here in England, and he used to go to ports in Africa. He loved black women. So I've probably got some black African cousins somewhere.
You got my man, yeah.
Right? No, but I'm just saying that obviously if that was a staple back in the day. That was how things worked. I don't think it was with every relationship, but I think it was a lot.
Well, but I'm saying it's still, even like women haven't changed. Like women still want the same things. They're just pickier and pickier and pickier. So it's a smaller and smaller percentage of men. So what I'm saying is the majority of men don't have the option to cheat. It's hard for a guy to get laid. Like on dating apps, like where you can be the most honest about what you want, right? Women only swipe right 5% of the time, where men swipe right 50% of the time. I mean, men will have sex with a hole in the wall.
But to kind of continue on that point, if you want to make a comparison between the modern day and back in the day, men had a lot less access. Really, we lived in small communities, and the only people who could sleep with the people that lived in your immediate vicinity. Your uncle was different because he was a sailor. Now men have a lot more access through dating apps.
But the thing is, I think what you're forgetting is that the reality of it is that men, I don't know the exact time ago that it was, but women actually had to stay in the house. So men were allowed to gallivant and do whatever they wanted.
Talking to the mic.
Sorry. Men were allowed to gallivant around, do whatever they wanted, like back in the Victorian times, ride horses around the place, right? While the women just had to sit at home and wait for them to come round.
But freedom comes with responsibility, right? So men also had to fight in wars. Well, we got to stay home. Right, so they were forced, they get drafted. So women, we have my body, my choice. Men don't when they get drafted.
Yeah, but I mean, look, we're not living in times where people get drafted to war anymore, are we? I mean,
Well, because we're not in a major war, but if that, I mean, look what happened in
Ukraine.
Yeah, in Ukraine, all the feminism went out the window when war times came. They're like, you
TikTok
know
was
what,
popping
bring me
off.
back to the kitchen.
but there goes where I said there's specific roles in society. I do understand that men and women have different strengths, and you know, one of the things we're not born to do is fight, really. But I definitely think that the reality is that the reason why feminism even got so much traction, the reason why we're here today, is because women have felt like we've had to fight for too long. I certainly have felt like that in my life, and I've had a relatively easy life, as I could imagine, in terms of women. You know what I mean? Like I'm probably in the like top fucking 10% of women with good lives and privilege. You know what I mean? So I can imagine that, you know, there were women in terrible situations.
What have you felt like you've had to fight for in 2022?
2022.
Well, yeah,
I don't feel like I have to fight so much now. It was more of
2010. I don't know, whatever.
I think back then it was just. I mean, I was a model. I was very like fresh, young face. I got very much predated upon by men. I would even say that to go as far as to say that it has unfortunately like left scars on me. Probably the reason why, you know, like we're talking about the however many men you have, I do struggle to find more meaningful relationships. But again, that was what I feel like was the oppression. You know, it was like, oh, you're just a pretty, like men literally saw me as that just a pretty face. Like they could manipulate me, use me.
Well, but that's the job, to be pretty.
What do you mean?
If, modeling. But
hold on. I'm not saying that modeling was the reason why before modeling it was that. You know what I mean?
So even before modeling.
Yeah.
Because to me, like being beautiful is an advantage. There's like people are treated pretty privileged. People are treated better if they're pretty. They get shorter sentencing, like for prison time.
No, okay.
No, I'm serious. Like you're more likely to get a job interview. Like being like in the top 20% of beauty. So being in the top 20% of beauty, where you could actually get a modeling contract, like that's a huge advantage in the world.
Yeah. No. Well, there was advantages that I had. I'm not saying there wasn't, but I mean, look, certainly we have to remember that my mental state when I was 16, 17, 18, when every girl first went out to have sex and like it was not the same. Like sex was painful 20 times before it became all right.
So I'm curious, you said marriage you felt like it was an oppressive structure for women. Could you talk more about that? You said something like that earlier.
Well, I don't think it's an oppressive thing now necessarily,
but
I think the institution as a whole, yeah. I mean, look, it's for hundreds of years it was women being told who they had to marry, not who they could love open and freely, right? And I just think that, you know, the fact is that no woman has a last name that is her own, right? You know, even if she chooses to keep her last name, that's her father's last name. It just seems a little bit crazy to me that you know what I mean? Look, not crazy to me because I know this is just how things work, but at the same time, I don't think we should have to buy into it like that. You know what I mean? I just don't think that we need to carry on that. I think we could have successful relationships without the institution of marriage. You know what I mean? Signing a contract to say, oh, I'm going to love you till the day I die. I'm going to be there in sickness and in health and blah, blah, blah. Mate, listen, as soon as women get sick, men run out the door. So